Here we go. Okay, so like I said, the stem cell is very adaptable, can be anything, but your skin cell, 3% of that genetic code says it's going to be you, and it's not going to morph into a monkey. So the cool thing about that is that that is kind of the pure signal. It's going to be a skin cell that looks like you, that still has the code, the information, all of the content of the purest form of you. But 97% of that genetic code is what we call the adaptive gene. And
Mhm.
the adaptive gene says that even though it's going to be a skin cell, it needs to adapt to its environment. And this is where environment starts to signal the gene. This is the epigenetic. The epi means above and
Oh,
outside the cell.
ah,
Genetic meaning the 97% of that genetic code. Epigenetics means that there's an influence outside the cell creating the genetic codes into the cell.
oh, okay. That's a good explanation.
So think about 97%. Is that just a little bit?
No, so,
That's a
so the
lot.
environment has a greater impact than we realize.
Exactly. So that's a lot of bit of influence. And when I say environment, we have to understand, well, what is environment? The internal environment of the body is the external environment of the cell, meaning that's the 97% of the environment or the 97% of the code that's being influenced by environment, the inside environment of your body. So what is the inside of your body? What's the inside? The inside is everything from chemicals to light energy to nerves and information, magnetic fields, all kinds of stuff. And the bottom line, like I said, we keep digging down to the dirt, to the fundamental of what is the actual influential signaling for that 97%. The influential signaling is frequency. When we get down to that 97% of the adaptive gene, what it's reading, it's not reading the temperature of the inside of your body. It's not reading the nutrient content inside your body. It's not reading chemistry. It's reading frequency. And everything, when we boil down to every bit of energy, or I should say every bit of matter, it is energy. Everything is energy. And you've heard this by Nikola Tesla and Einstein, and many of the scientists have talked about the fundamental molecular structure. When we keep going tinier and tinier and tinier, we've discovered one thing. It's energy. There's not really matter. There's not really a mass or solid. It's all vibrational, energetic photons and electrons just vibrating at specific frequencies. And this is how we can tell one molecular structure from another. It's frequency. A skin cell from a molecule of wood or something, right? So we look at the frequency and we can tell its core, aka a skin cell, but the environment outside of it starts to give its own frequency as a messenger to that 97% of the adaptive gene. And when we're understanding what these frequencies are, well, let's just look at emotion. Emotion has a frequency. Anger versus joy, two very distinct frequencies, and there's where those frequencies live is inside your body.
Mhm.
And so those frequencies of emotion are writing to the 97% of the code, the adaptive signal to every cell in your body. Remember this, 800,000 cells per second, becoming an expression of you based on your emotion.
Oh,
Okay? So if our emotion is most of the time in lack, I'm just using that as an analogy, versus in joy. Like, for instance, my life sucks and I can't get anything done, nothing works right for me, all of those whatevers. That content,
Stinking thinking is what I call that.
yeah.
yeah, stinking thinking, I call it below the belt thinking. It's
Yeah.
a lot of terms for it. The point is that still the mother lode of your genetic expression is in your hands when we understand this principle. 97% of that cell's expression is going to be based on the frequency of the information. So if we are looking at skin cells that have become cancerous, okay, that's all that is a cell structure that have gotten enough commands over time,
Mm.
over time, to become a lower version of itself because every time a genetic code is written, you may have heard of telomerase. The
Yes.
telomere is a portion of your molecular structure or the genetic coding that is the shoestring or the end of an enzyme.
Mhm.
And that telomere, it shortens over our lifespan. When it gets to a certain length, it's end of life. But there is an enzyme called the telomere enzyme. The telomere is the end of the chromosome. The telomere enzyme is the enzyme that determines that, let's call it decay rate. Okay, the rate of change. It's essentially an enzyme that helps the fill in the information as the cell becomes a new version of itself to not have a decay. Every time it changes, it's kind of like one little notch less than the one before, and that's
Mhm.
how the telomere shortens over time.
Mhm.
But the telomere enzyme fills that gap, and our and there are certain organisms out there who don't age or age super super slowly because the telomere enzyme is so abundant in their bodies. We can produce that same enzyme, but what downregulates that production is these energetic influences I'm talking about: lower vibration energy, stress response, um,
Mhm.
chemical toxic burden. Um, Smoking, I'm telling you right now, is probably one of the highest. Actually, now they're saying sedentary lifestyle is the highest influence on telomere
Mhm.
depletion.
Really?
Used to be smoking,
Wow.
and now science is revealing that a sedentary lifestyle is
Mhm.
even higher than smoking.
Wow.
So, if we want to improve our health, then I think it's the to me the fundamental baseline, I guess, actions that we should be working on is our frequency expression, right?
Mhm.
Making sure that everything that we're taking in, because every chemical you take in, I don't care if you're drinking a soda pop or drinking coffee, it has a frequency to it. It's at the very end of the molecular structure where we keep digging down, digging down, digging down. We just zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. The very end of that is a frequency. It's not the chemical because even chemicals have a
Mhm.
frequency to them.
Yeah.
And so when we get all the way down to that, the body uses it and sees it as a frequency. That's the information that it's using to create the genetic codes and then ultimately express the physical, biological, three-dimensional version of you.
Mhm.
The three-dimensional version of you is the end expression or the end result, right, of energy. So, so now we know some principles about the concepts of how these bodies are created. Now, let's talk about how we can influence or hack that signal, what we call biohacking. How could we then change some of that genetic expression by just simply frequency alone? Well, the first one, if we look at the first order of business when it comes to a frequency response in the body, the first order of business is our senses. All right. The senses. We have these amazing sensory perceptive entities: what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, what we touch. All of those things are built into us. You know, Source gave us, God gave us these amazing senses so that we could look at our world, analyze our environment, and have multiple ways of perceiving it, uh, just from a objective position. The eye itself is just an objective organ that has tremendous capabilities from focus to color perception to all kinds of wide variety of frequency information within the light spectrum. Now, when I say light, remember that's ultraviolet and infrared. So above and below what we call visual light. Our
Mhm.
eyes can still perceive this.
Mhm.
However, we have, as we grew up, we programmed out a lot of the non-visible light
Mhm.
spectrums. If you guys, I mean, if you remember back when you were a kid, did you ever just see things that nobody else did? Right? Or you know kids who go, can just be looking at something. You're going, what are you looking at? And they're like, this, and you're like, what? We have been told, and we've written that right into subconscious programming that something is not real because others can't see it.
Mhm.
And it's not true. It's not true. There are practices we can do to start seeing things beyond what we call visible light spectrums and know there is still information in the non-visible, ultraviolet and infrared. Okay, so these senses are amazing, but they're just benign tools. We have assigned meaning to every bit of content that comes in to our senses. When we see something, we have assigned meaning to its color, its texture, its perceptive dimension. All of the content has been built. We have assigned meaning to it based on training from our past. Doesn't mean it's all true. It doesn't mean it's all complete. It just means that's what we know. We know what we know. Okay. Same thing with what we hear, taste, smell, touch, all of that. We've assigned meaning to it. So, perfect example, if you've ever had some traumatic experience involving, say, a blue car, and you see a blue car, it triggers a response almost automatically in your body. When I say traumatic experience, it could be an amazing love affair, right? I'm not saying traumatic is trauma. It doesn't necessarily mean bad.
Mhm.
It just means highly influential.
Hmm.
So we have these highly influential love affairs with someone who owned a blue car. And when we see a blue car, we get this warm and fuzzy feeling, right? And this kind of content is built into our subconscious. We've experienced it. The,
Mhm.
the next fundamental principle of experience is that we can never unexperience an experience. I always say you can't untaste the orange juice. You can choose to never drink it again. You can choose to never smell it again. You can choose to stay as far away from it as you wish, but you won't ever unexperience it. 'Cause somebody says, "Hey, you want some orange juice?" Guess what happens? Your mouth starts to taste it, your mind assigns meaning, your body has an experience about it, and you say, "No, thank you." Okay? Same thing with every other emotional condition that you've ever had. By about the time of 35 years old, and this is neuroscience, about the time we're 35 years old, the body has written into it content about every component of every variation of emotional experience that you'll have. At that
And
point,
is that considered epigenetics?
that's considered neuroscience. Neurologically, we've
Okay.
put programs in our brain, we've created neurological bundles or what we call default neural networks
Mm.
that suggest that when we get a trigger, aka a sensory perception, what we see, smell, taste, or touch, or hear, that it automatically turns on some response. This is our neural network default programs.
Mhm.
So just like the blue car, just like if you smell a rose, just
Mhm.
and you don't have to see the rose, do you? But you can smell it, and then what happens in your mind? You see it. You
I've had that with people. I had a very abusive teacher just 1 year of my life. I had wonderful parents, but people with her kind of flat affect,
hmm
they trigger me. I immediately go, oh, careful, this person might hurt me.
hmm
Yeah.
Yep,
Is that what you're describing right there?
it is. And so the higher the emotional response to the trigger, the more deeper seated it is in our DNA
Mm.
because it triggers a life or death situation or an experience in which we assigned a fear or a scary or a harmful a meaning to. We've assigned meaning to it.
Hmm.
Here's the cool thing about that assignment. It's an assignment. Who did that? Who made that assignment?
We did.
I
We
did.
I did. Yeah.
I did as a little girl.
I
Yeah.
did. And so because I did it, I can undid it. I can undo it. And what it requires is a fundamental, another principle. It requires a reassignment of something of higher emotional response from a different emotion. So in whenever that emotion comes up about that person with that demeanor, when
Mhm.
you see them and you feel the trigger, fall in love with them.
I know I make myself go toward them. I force myself to,
So
even though I want in the opposite direction.
going towards them is it's still fearful, But if
Mhm.
you fall in love with them, when you start building, you got to build a new emotional response on top
Mhm.
of the other because the neural network is not going to get replaced because you're
Mhm.
still experiencing fear. You're just forcing yourself to go against the fear. And
Mhm.
in order for there to be force, there must be resistance. That's the laws of dynamics. And so if you stop the resistance by falling in love with them, there's no resistance, therefore no force. Okay.
Mhm.
So we can erase all that. Now let's go back into how and why technology, or Healy specifically,
Mhm.
influences biology. So remember, we go back to the fundamental principle around frequency. Well, Healy is a frequency generator, and it generates frequencies based on a random noise generator, which is influenced by your consciousness. So, in other words, it it will adjust itself automatically when we use the microcurrent program. So, in other words, Healy has the ability to transmit microcurrent out of the leads, and we can either run that through direct electron flow into the body, aka microcurrent, or we can convert that same output into a magnetic field with the coil. Now, I'm showing you, by the way, those of you that are new with Healy, I'm showing you an obsidian. This is black. That's a different version than the standard. I mean, this is the standard Healy. They're white. And this is what it looks like, but it functions exactly the same. Okay. Same kind of cabinet, same kind of coil. Everything is the same. So when
Yeah.
we convert that, there you go. So Patty's showing.
This part's the coil that comes off, Patricia.
Yep, and
Okay.
I can actually show you a really cool contrast here.
So you don't have to use the leads. Like in my line dancing class, I put the memory program on and I put this in down my bra. Anyway, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so here's a good contrast. I put the black coil on the white cabinet so you can kind of see how it sits on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see that? So the when we transmit the microcurrent, aka electron flow, right directly into the body, those electrons that are going through the body, as I mentioned before, the fundamental combination that build up molecules are electrons and photons. Okay, that's that's the very fundamental bit. And within the electron is information. Well, the information that's in there are the frequencies transmitted by Healy. And the way that it works from the fundamental position is it uses the law of resonance, the theory of resonance. When that electron flow goes into your body, whether it's through the magnetic field or the electron field because you're connected to the wires, it uses resonance of the body it's attached to find out what that body needs within the parameters of the program you're running.
Mhm.
So let's say you're running the program memory, as Patty was talking about. And so I run that all the time a lot when I'm on these Zoom calls.
Mhm.
So it just seems like I'm smarter. I'm really not. I just, anyway. Um, it helps to maintain cognitive awareness so you don't get distracted, so that you also have clarity. It also downregulates stress response because stress response is one of the biggest factors to negate memory.
Oh, that's so true. Oh my goodness. When I
It's
lost my husband, it's like my memory went away for a while.
Yep. When you're in stress response, that does it down regulates very
Mhm.
useful systems in our body so that it can maintain the stress response. So when it's again back to Healy, when it's seeking resonance of you, it's taking a look at your biology. It's running an electron flow or a magnetic signal through your body, taking that information, understanding who it's connected to,
Mhm.
and finding resonance with it, a coherent, balanced frequency system. And once it finds that within you, it starts to pick frequencies specific to the task of the program you're running, aka memory. And there's a pool typically within every program that Healy has. There's a pool of probably over 300 different frequencies it can choose from, but still within the boundaries of memory and within the boundaries of life, not just human life, by the way, life. And so it works with animals just as much as it works with the body. It works with plants just as much as it works with a body.
I need help with my plants.
You
I just
want it,
sent one of my plants home with my daughter to nurse it. I didn't even think about putting it in my Healy.
I'll
I
tell you
could.
a little secret. You take the sticky pads and you put them on a plant, on the stem of the plant, and then you run memory into the plant. It'll remember how to be healthy.
Really? Wow. I will give that a try. I shouldn't have
It's
sent it away then.
it's kind of crazy. It's very interesting. So, but Patty, what this comes with, it comes with these wristbands that go around your wrist. Of course, the wires to connect to the hardware. It also comes with these little sticky pads that you can stick to your body in different places
Okay.
to give the microcurrent to what we would call acute locations, right?
Okay.
Some programs are for acute conditions, so you can put them right on the foot when it's talking about pain.
Hmm.
We can put them right on the brachial plexus right back here and speak to the plexus of nerves to downregulate pain or to upregulate consciousness or memory
Mhm.
or concentration. A lot of things that we can do. We can put them on the mastoid bone right back here when we're talking to the brain, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Okay. When we hook them up with the wristbands like this, or we're using the coil, those are typically for systemic or full system influence. Okay.
Okay.
When we're talking about acute, you don't run the coil with any of the acute programs, learning programs that it'll say acute. You know, it says you can tell what programs are what.
So
Anyway,
what are you using for the acute? Like for my foot, I wouldn't be hooked up to wires like that then?
you would just be running a program that's designed for pain, or for joint, or they are all the pain programs are acute and designed to be applied.
Mhm.
You can apply them generally through the systemic mode and then
Mhm.
the whole body. But let's just say you're working on a headache, right? You would put them right on the mastoid bone. That's an acute position for an acute condition, running the pain program.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or if it's the foot, we'll put them right on the foot, um, and we'll address that issue right at the source. Okay.
Okay.
So, and we're running microcurrent. And here, I highly recommend microcurrent when you're working. This is Healy doesn't work so well with the wristband. I mean, with the coil, when you're doing acute conditions because it's sending a magnetic signal out. And when you're sending a magnetic signal out, when you're converting electron flow into magnetic energy, there is a, a bit of loss. When I say loss, it's loss of power. There's a percentage of loss of power because what happens is it takes the electron flow, converts it to magnetic energy. The magnetic wave goes out, touches your body, and your body's an antenna. It converts it back to electron flow, and then your body understands and digests and uses the information. So there's a bit of what we call in electronics a factor of loss because of that conversion. Connect directly to these, there's no loss. You know, the only loss there is the resistance in your own body. And that resistance in your own body accumulates because of dehydration, because of skin condition, drier skin, conductivity because of electrolytes. All of that stuff has a factor. And we want to
So
just
lack of electrolytes and lack of water because the frequency goes through our fluids in our body, correct?
correct. It uses water as or I should say mineralized water as the modality, or I should say the wiring circuit. It's the same as a wire.
Hmm.
Electron flow goes through water, and as you know, you've always heard, don't stand in water and put your finger in a light socket or whatever. You know, you could get zapped, or that it is a direct line
Hmm.
of electrical conduction. So anyway, so that's hydration and electrolytes. The other factor, and here's what's interesting too. I've worked with so many people over the years that a resistive personality is another one that negates the signal's ability to get through your mass.
Wow.
Why? Think about this. I told you a principle earlier.
Because of your brain. Your brain controls everything.
97% of the adaptive gene is reading the environment, and the environment is resistive because of your attitude, personality, perceptions, and beliefs.
Hmm.
And so does the cell structures because become resistant as well.
Hmm.
And I've run into very few, but a couple people that no matter what we did, we could not get proper conduction. And the Healy measures, by the way, the app will show you that you are getting current flow or not getting current flow.
Hmm.
It tells you if you're resistant or not. It tells you if you got a proper connection or not. It's constantly checking itself.
Okay.
So how would a placebo effect be explained? Or is there such a thing as a placebo effect?
Placebo effect takes into account one's own mind's ability to adjust biology.
Hmm.
One's own mind's ability to adjust biology.
Hmm.
Because your beliefs, perceptions, understandings, personality, ego, all of that is writing to that 97% of the adaptive gene I explained to you earlier. Okay.
Mhm.
So we can't negate that. So science figured out a while back, I think it was like about mid 1960s. This was discovered during the war, actually, during Vietnam. I think it was crazy. It was a conflict that was going on, and the field medics, um, the doctor and the nurse. It was this one team. The nurse is the one who discovered this. That they were coming in. They ran out of morphine. The soldiers that were hurt, injured, were coming in. They ran out of morphine in the field, and she started taking saline and telling
Oh.
and telling the soldiers that
Mm.
I will take care of your pain. Watch me, believe.
Mm.
I love this. Just stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. Here comes your morphine. Your pain will be okay. And start giving them morphine. And they're like, oh, thank you. And they would literally downregulate pain based on their own belief. And so this nurse started, and the doctor was observing what this nurse was doing. And what the hell are you doing? And he was intrigued how this was happening. And so they started partnering up and pairing up, and they started doing more work with this and discovered they called it the placebo.
Mhm.
And ever since then, um, it caught on, and now even and drug companies now have to put in a certain measure of placebo personnel who are getting a sham drug or a sham procedure that had nothing to do with the chemical, just to see how much the mind is influencing the outcome.
Interesting.
And here's the equation: up to 74%.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. That's
Up
awesome.
to 74% influenced by thought alone, aka placebo. So when you ask again, so the same thing as the opposite. The opposite of placebo is called nocebo. Nocebo. Nocebo is where we believe the opposite. It's going to hurt us. It's going to be damaging, and that also becomes true.
Mm.
And so that equation is just as high and just as influential. So we have to understand that we have a huge, again, back to my principle. We have the mother lode influence over our biology, the biological expression from an infinite code of information called DNA. We solidify it every second to the tune of 800,000 cells per second to physical form. Okay. This is epigenetics. This is epigenetics at its finest. And this is how we reverse any condition that's currently in our body or ward off anything that's potential, no matter what your genetic history is, no matter what your family is. It's now
Wow.
shown every doctor will do a little historical record, like how, any of
Mhm.
this in your family, any of that in your family, and all that kind of stuff, right? That starts setting the stage for the placebo effect because now we start analyzing, we start looking at our past, we start thinking, well, maybe it's us, maybe
Mhm.
we're going to have this. And the truth of it is lifestyle. Lifestyle, because we're taught lifestyle from our family, from our parents, and we act, behave, and believe in a certain bandwidth. When we move on into our lives, that bandwidth comes with us
Mhm.
and expresses influence over that 97% of the adaptive gene. And suddenly we seem to be like our parents.
Yeah.
It's not because so much of the codes that's only 3%.
Mm.
That's 3%. Lifestyle dictates, and the whole energy field dictates the other 97%. Um, Dan Buettner did a study. Um, he was given a grant from National Geographic to do a study and discovered and wrote the book called Blue Zones.
Yeah.
Okay. So blue zones are 6, 7 places on the planet where people naturally live to centenarians, so 100 years old or high 90s. And he was trying to find out why. And one of the contemporary beliefs was just how you diet and exercise, right? What he discovered wasn't that. That the higher percentage of why people live to older lives was community, how their lifestyle was based on their sense of belonging, the understanding of needed, being part of a organism, and their own value within themselves.
Mm.
That was the mother lode. Well, guess what? I mean, that's part of that 97% of the adaptive gene, reading the frequency within that body. And that frequency within that body felt valuable,
Hmm.
felt loved. So when it comes to that, what's the number one cancer in women?
Breast.
Breast cancer.
What energy center or chakra are the breasts?
Heart.
Heart.
Yeah.
What's discovered is in the feminine, the one biggest lack is love.
Hmm.
The sense of being and wanting in love.
Hmm.
As that down regulates, it lowers the energy field in that chakra. And we can measure that, by the way. And when you down regulate energy within any system of your body, any system, the cell expression in that area becomes a lower cell membrane voltage.
Hmm.
The cell membrane voltage is how we can tell the health of the cell. Negative 70 millivolts, we can measure it with a little tiny meter, we can measure it. Negative 70 millivolts is a healthy cell and above. When we start getting below that, it is less healthy. And when we get down to 40 millivolts, negative 40 millivolts, that's cancer.
Hmm.
Wow.
Here's what Healy does with the microcurrent. When we run microcurrent into the body, that microcurrent charges cell membrane voltage. It's a coherent signal. Anytime we have a coherent signal with any molecular structure, it amplifies it. So this is like a tidal wave. When we drop a pebble in the ocean, it creates a wave. When there's other influences that amplify that same frequency of wave, it grows. And it continues to grow through other astrological influences, wind patterns, magnetic influences from the earth. It continues to grow and can continue to grow into a tidal wave. One little ripple can grow into a tidal wave. This is the same thing with the cell membrane voltage. When we send it a coherent signal, not just with the microcurrent and the frequencies within, but also our own thought, our own beliefs, our own inner frequencies. That's all amplifiers. So my new company, Core Effect, is designed to amplify those signals through light, vibration, sound, microcurrent, and concentrated oxygen. And so when we do that, we can take this microcurrent right here, and we can amplify those signals, and we can start to increase cell membrane voltage, particular to say whatever program that we've decided, like memory. Patty was talking about memory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a portion in our brain where memory lives. And if that portion of our brain has lower energy, because that energy is being redirected to stress, doesn't matter why, but that's usually the case,
Mm-hmm.
then our memory, it's not gone. It's just it has no energy.
Hmm.
And so when we take Healy and we pump that energy back, all of a sudden it's like, woo, I remember. Right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't take very long. That program's like what, 52 minutes or something like that? I don't know.
Mhm.
Um,
It's my favorite.
I use it, Patty. I use it all the time. I do Tech Tip Tuesday every Tuesday, and I have that thing running in the background. My Healy's on, and it's running in the background. So, so there is how Healy interfaces on just the tangible three-dimensional space of our body, but Healy has another level. I remember I talked to you earlier in the beginning of this conversation around a random noise generator. That random noise generator is not only used just to find out the proper frequencies for your resonance, but it also within the Heal Advisor Analyze app, which is another level of what Healy does, it uses that random noise generator as an analytical engine to interface with the client. And the client is defined by you put information into the app about you. You're a client. A client can be a person, an animal, a plant, an organization, a building, It can be anything. We just put the proper information in there. And what that information does, because it's the name in terms of a person, it's their name, their date of birth, right? Their place of birth, their gender, their picture. And then we take a vibrational analysis and we put that all into a little file, into a little nest egg. That becomes the client. That separates you from any other being in the universe. Now you're quantumly entangled. There's no mistake that it's you. I mean, there's lots of Patties. We got two of them right here, right? But there's only one that has all of those other definitions I told you about. Okay. And now we've quantum entangled Healy, that program, with that one person. Then we close the bridge by taking Healy and analyzing you, the client, with a database. A database. Now, Healy's got many different databases, one of which is all of the Healy programs that I was just talking to you about with the microcurrent and such. All of those programs is a database. So if you don't know which program to run for yourself, I don't know, there's 300 of them. So which one do I pick? You can be intuitive and just say, oh, that one right there says memory. I'm going to need that. So I'm going to use that one. Or we can do an analysis on you with that random noise generator using your quantum entanglement to the database. And Healy will use that generator to bridge the content in the database with the content of you. And it will pick the 5 most necessary program pages for your need to align you with the best version of you. Not just memory, not just in gastric function, not just in emotion, but you. Because we have to understand that there is a you out there in the quantum field that is perfect. It's perfect in form, it's perfect in time, it's perfect in every way, in every sense of the word. What happens is that, and Einstein says this, the observer effect. It requires a consciousness to observe waveform into matter. All right. So if there's potential waveform for you in your own perfection, and then something, aka a consciousness, starts to observe potential, like remember what I said earlier, you have all these senses, and all these senses observe everything in your world, and you put meaning to it, judgment. You put content to everything that's coming into your senses, everything, right? And that's about 2,000 bits of information per second. You're taking all that information, you're assigning meaning to it. This is my life. So that takes all the potentials, this other potentials of what could be your life, and solidifies it into form. And that mind uses the brain to send signaling information into biology, the 97% of that adaptive gene, to make you the body you live in. Look at the power you have. Just sit with that for a moment. The power you have lies in your mind, right?
Yeah.
If there's a perfect form of you, just sitting in Source's lap, hanging out with God, the infinite field, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it, there's a perfect version of you. But the version sitting here in this space and time is imperfect. There's a bridge between that. And we can hack the bridge. We can do this by thought alone, by the way, folks. I've been working with a group of people who do this for over a decade now. And we could do that by thought alone. But that requires a complete objective function in your life. It's not easy to do because we typically take, well, what they said about me is true, and oh my God, I am a loser, or I don't look great, or whatever it is. Or even you look in the mirror yourself and you have your own judgment, and that all has influence on biology. Doesn't mean the perfect version doesn't still live there in the quantum field, because it does. But we solidify matter by our thought alone. And we now are biohacking that matter. But guess what can still sabotage that? Mind. The placebo effect. That
Well,
makes
there's
sense?
a Bible verse that said, where God says, "Be perfect as I am perfect." So that would go quite well with what you just said.
That is reiterated in every religious literature, belief structure ever written, because
Hmm.
it's not my truth. It's
Hmm.
the truth.
Hmm.
It's source itself. It's not,
Yeah.
I'm just from an engineering perspective, showing you how it works, giving you hack techniques by mind alone, by thought alone, or by technology. I do both.
Hmm.
I do both. I have a very regimented practice in meditation. I have a very regimented belief structure that is pretty vast and unobstructed. I can maintain a certain brainwave state even in the moment of chaos and disorder. That would be your best friend. If your awareness got so vast and so zoomed out that no matter what was happening in your three-dimensional space, you could still maintain a state of awareness of calm, then you would navigate in a body that has no stress response. Not that it wouldn't use it sometimes, because when you digest food or when you go exercise, you're crushing it in the gym, there's going to be a form of stress response. That's
Hmm.
okay. That's okay. But what happens is when your body comes back down to resting heart rate from your workout,
Hmm.
when you are done digesting food, your body goes right back into balance.
Hmm.
But the problem is we don't allow that in the mind. We have a rehearsal of trauma, like what happened in that blue car, and we remember it. Or the
Yeah.
person that had that face, every time I see one of those people, man, I'm back in that stress response. The body does not know the difference at the biological and epigenetic level, does not know the difference between something you make up in your mind or something you're experiencing in your three-dimensional world. It doesn't know the difference. It's an objective servant to be the form of it that serves you.
I have a question, Ken.
Yes.
At, because and I don't know if this is true, but maybe you can clarify this for me. I've always heard that when a woman's pregnant, when that when the fetus is 5 months old, if it's a female, it has all of its eggs that it's ever going to have. So theoretically, when I would be pregnant with my daughter, I'd also be pregnant with every grandchild. Do you see what I'm saying?
The,
Because those eggs were already formed in that baby, at 5 months, the eggs that she would go on to conceive. And when we talk about generational curse or whatnot, sometimes I feel like, that can be alcohol abuse and all that passed down. But, we don't know the traumas that our mother or grandmother, my grandmother may have carried while she was pregnant with my mother.
yep.
Uh,
Yep. And
I
all that.
had a very tumultuous pregnancy with my last child, and he's has really struggled. My mother-in-law was killed in a plane crash. 6 weeks later, my mother died suddenly. I mean, just all kinds of trauma, and he's been. I think he's been impacted by that his whole life, and then losing his own dad, just let me see, a year later, 2 years later. Yeah, a lot of loss back to back.
yeah,
And what I talked about was, remember, all of that, what you're saying right now, from the egg, from the past history, that's 3%.
yeah,
That's 3% of the potential as of the fixed. The fixed outcome is 3%. So it's true. It is built into that 3%. But all of the 97% is still in the environment. Uh,
wow,
so,
yeah,
so when that child that's in the womb is in a host, aka a mother, that is in an environment that is chaotic, disorder, and broken, and there's constant sirens and there's constant loud noises, there's constant flashing lights, there's constant chaos,
Hmm.
that fetus is still learning, believing, becoming genetically to the 97% of the adaptive gene that entity to survive in that environment, even in the womb. So it's imperative that if we want a baby, and this starts even beforehand. I mean, indigenous tribes would have these ceremonies that was part of the marriage ritual that before consummation, after marriage, the hosts would go out and do their spirit walk and decide who they want to be and who they want their child to be. And they would come back with that and then consummate because that energy field was part of the genetic codes in the sperm and the egg. For the sperm and the egg are only a part of the equation. The even each individual sperm of the hundreds and thousands of cells that actually impregnate the egg are variances. Okay, the fact that you are born you, science did a study on this and analysis and statisticians, and they discovered that the fact that you are you born in this space and time, the odds are 400 trillion to 1.
Wow.
100 trillion to 1. That's like was it 100,000 times more rare than you winning the lottery.
Yeah.
So when it again, those eggs are almost vast potential. Only 3% is
Yeah.
fixed.
Yeah.
So this gives who power? It gives who
Us.
You yourself, us
Me,
ourselves.
me, myself, and I.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I want. And so I designed, so again, back from the engineering perspective, I designed all systems, every bit of the presentations to empower the body, empower you. And this technology, Healy, gives that power back to you. Still, you can negate all of it with mind.
I I have to say something. I haven't used my Healy in a long time. I have autoimmunes and we just have a lot of responsibilities and my stress, is over the top. And so I a lot of times when I would run my Healy, like how it read, it 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 was kind of frightening to me because it was like most of the time I feel like I have a pretty positive outlook on life, I'm pretty positive, but that's what I struggled with was like deep down, it's like I don't even know myself. Like some of those readings would come out so weird. And I was always, I was trying to think, oh, my aminos are always, they're never on. My aminos are always way off. And I can't get ready. I want to start using it again because I just,
Let me do this for a minute. Let me do this real quick. Let me interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt
okay.
you.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I want to change your language. I
Okay.
want to change your language from saying I am and I have to my body is and my body has.
Okay.
You are perfect. If you zoom out and be the observer I told you about from the quantum field, there is no flaw. And you
Yeah.
can live in an observation of that perspective or an observation of what your body is.
Okay.
That's a choice. And when you live in the observation of what the body is, you will always repeat the same outcome of the body. So, Patty, when it comes to working with your foot,
Mhm.
the most important piece is being the version of you that does the things you want to do without the condition that your body has.
Okay.
Write that down.
Okay.
Being the version of you that does the things you want to do without the conditions the body has. So in other words, there's no limitation by body. You're
Mhm.
you're building a life through thought alone, through mind and beliefs. And the reason that we stop using our Healy a lot of times is because there's a subconscious program that keeps us tied to our failures.
Well, that and I wasn't drink. I for some reason I quit drinking enough water, and I feel like,
Again,
what?
your body stopped drinking enough water.
Yeah, my
Again,
body quit drinking.
remember,
Yeah.
you know what knows you the best? Your mind. Your mind knows you better than anything, and it will put in behavior patterns to stop you from getting outside your comfort zone. And if I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of times not a lot of times, every time the conditions in our body are created from the belief structures in our mind to keep us safe from ourselves. Now, again, what happens to a body? Let's say that it's something to do with our foot. What's our foot represent? Our foot represents modality. Everything from the hip down represents the portability, the modality, and the moving around our world. And if we wind up all of a sudden getting stagnant, stationary, can't afford to travel, don't feel, feel overwhelmed by the world, and we are a shut in, our body will start creating a purpose, a reason, and a limitation
Wow.
being able to travel.
Yeah. To be a,
Mhm.
Think about this. The same reason that breast cancer comes, the lack of feeling loved, the diminishing of our value of self and perceived value from others builds a lowering of energy within our our desire, our love, our expression of joy within this heart center, and suddenly every cell system within there, including heart, including breasts, including skin, including the lungs, decay. I don't mean decay, lowers. It just
right. The frequency lowers.
the frequency lowers, so does the cell membrane voltage. Cancer cannot live in a highly charged cell membrane environment because that cell is not cancerous. It's vital to the host. It's utilized by the host. It's using it's a high level of voltage, meaning a high level of frequency, meaning completely in love with life. So there are hacks that we do that I do is I fall in love with life for no reason. No reason because we're looking outside of us to fall in love with life for that. Like if somebody
Right.
loves me, I will love you.
Right.
That's conditional. Unconditional love is what changes your biology every single time. Unconditional love, no matter what somebody is saying, doing, being, that face,
Right.
what I
Right.
said to you earlier, Patty, that face that you see
Yeah.
that represents the trauma,
Yeah. Yeah.
fall in love with it.
Mm.
Fall in love with it.
Well,
That's
it's interesting because I have some of my closest friends now are ones that I chose to get to know better. And I've realized that they aren't my enemy and they are actually very um, positive towards me, but I was assuming that they were not, that they were criticizing me
there you go.
because people with that kind of a face were usually like, I thought you
Yeah.
were taking check food bad,
You have
food
assigned
bad.
meaning. You have assigned meaning. And remember, when you assign meaning, that becomes law, and
Yeah.
that perfect version of you gets tainted. The perfect version of you in the quantum field gets changed by mind. Mind starts to orchestrate the brain to create chemistry that goes into the body, that's signaling molecules called peptides that build biology that supports that less than body. The body that looks for that problem is limited by that problem
Mm-hmm.
and is a lower vibration or a lower energy of cell structures by that problem.
I do feel like we are supposed to find love in everything, even the things that are difficult to find. You know what I mean? To find the love component
I,
of
I'm
it.
not, I'm not saying that's easy. I'm just saying that finding love, and it's I agree. Sometimes it's not easy to find love, but you can also, there's another hack that I use a lot. You can find curiosity. Curiosity is that bridge between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, or stress response and rest and digest. Curiosity is that bridge that kind of can be played with, because we can look at someone and be curious about how we're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't get necessarily assigned as a stress response because curiosity keeps our right brain engaged, right? It keeps
Mm-hmm.
our right brain engaged, and that right brain engagement, the better that we keep that curiosity or that creative brain engaged, the lowering of analytics. In neuroscience, there is an equation that the more analytical you are, the less creative you are because the brain is in that analysis mode. The creative brain gets downregulated, and when you switch that up, curiosity switches that up. The curiosity brain keeps us moving forward, keeps us leaning in on life, keeps
Mm-hmm.
us less resistant to things. And then what I say earlier, with less resistance means less force. That's just a thermodynamic respect of things. And all of a sudden, what we find is a flow of life that winds up being more easy, more free.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to the epigenetic influence of you, these are just some principles. Use them or not, when you start to practice them, and believe me, I'm not saying you'll be great at it right out of the chute. No different than learning how to play basketball or any kind of physical sport. You might start dribbling, maybe you bounce the ball off your toe, maybe you trip and fall, whatever. The point is, you just continue to practice, and the more you practice, you start to gain skills. The more skills you start to gain, the better influence you get over that genetic expression. That 97% of the adaptive gene is reading frequency. Keep the frequency within the parameters of growth, of emotional response, above what I call above the belt emotional responses: joy, gratitude, love, curiosity, abundance, staying away from.
Creativity. I mean, because don't you feel like with creativity, I feel like once you have creativity, you that spills over into other areas of your life as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like artists and
Mhm.
musicians and even doing crafts, even
See, that's me.
yeah,
Like I create things. So when I create things, it spills over into when I allow myself the time to do that,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I it spills over into other areas of my life that makes it the rest of my life better.
And this is again the 97% of the adaptive gene. Whatever you're doing, remember that's your mother load influence over your biology. And if you want your biology to be better, you've got to make some adjustments. And we use these tools as hacks to help us. Sometimes we need to anything just to get out of the trenches so that we can start getting on top of things, right? Especially when it comes to pain. And that's Patty, this was telling me some of the
Hmm.
pain within the feet, within your foot, and the conditions within the body. It's really it is a bit of a challenge to get beyond those when we're dealing with pain because it is an energy consumer. Um,
Correct.
and
Extremely.
we need some tools, right? And so Healy gives us those tools. Other technologies gives us these tools. I've created a healing model. Um, this whole model is it's high in amplitude of influence. We can change things in little increments with low amplitudes of influence. Healy is a low amplitude influence, but it's an influence that you can wear every day. When I get ready in my daytime, I suit up. I suit up because I'm not like right now, my program's over. But I suit up and I wear this almost every day. It's like my jewelry. I have a really cool necklace that goes along with it. It looks pretty cool.
And you wear the wires to the bracelet all the time?
And I wear them through my sleeve. You can't even see them. I'm active. I'm going to be out on a project a little later. I work with fitness clubs. I build and create fitness centers as well as running my healing center. I'm busy. I'm active, right? I'm going to be
Okay.
taking my daughter. I'm working with my daughter in terms of she's doing some body sculpting, and I mean, we're busy. And but this goes with me.
So
And
the codes will be running all the time for me when I'm wearing this.
when you are running a program, it will automatically be doing things based on the dynamic you, okay? And it's going to be influencing biology to the tune of 800,000 cells per second, like I told you before.
Yeah.
And it's going to be speaking to that 97% of the adaptive gene that's writing to those codes, or writing to those cells.
How long do you think it would be before I would notice any type of improvement?
That's based on your mind.
Okay, I want it to be immediate. I believe in this.
There you go. There you go. Then that belief structure alone will be the increase in effectiveness. That's what I mean. I can't, no matter how much I want to heal the world, and by the way, that is my mission is to heal the world, and that's why I created the healing centers that I do. It's a duplicatable model that is all energy influenced and people can become a practitioner they do not need to have a PhD, an MD, a
Okay.
scholar, a guru. It's all energy. And
So, so you mentioned what was that called? The
Random noise generator.
Yes. So if I wanted something like that for you to determine what codes I needed to run, would that be appropriate for something like that or?
Healy does it for you. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I
Yes.
would just run my own codes once I had the,
Yeah. Yeah. Once
what are we calling the device?
what you would do, would if you when you get
Yeah.
a Healy,
Yep.
you get a Healy. Healy comes in various editions. And you have the edition from the entry level all the way up to the full analysis and implication edition. The most popular edition is what's called the professional edition. That comes with pretty much everything you need. It's got like over 300 different programs. It's got some very distinct modules. We didn't even talk about the digital nutrition module it comes with because even Healy has every frequency for every nutrient. I heard you mention about amino acids.
Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
The amino
Okay.
acids are
Yeah.
all built into there because
Okay.
we can send the body frequencies for the amino acids, for the vitamin, for the nutrient, for the mineral. We still need to eat. But what happens is when we send the frequencies to the body, it increases the cell receptor sites and ups the bioavailability of the nutrients you're ingesting.
Okay.
And so now we are just building a body that's more receptive. When we do eat properly, it's going to have a better effect.
Okay.
It
Because
doesn't
I just started a arthritis anti-inflammatory
perfect.
diet for this, and I mean I'm very serious about this since I've come back from North Carolina and the relief I've gotten off of Cheryl's wellness machine.
Yep.
That's what started my quest on this, and to be in constant pain the way I am, and it just sometimes I can't even put a sheet on my foot. That's how bad it is.
And,
Oh,
and yet, and
you're
yet,
mm.
Cheryl's machine did what?
It took away my pain.
Exactly.
It changed my whole thing.
How to do it.
Um, and you know what? I have a seroma on my belly from a mommy makeover, and I caught out my baby alien. It looks like a softball size, and they drained it. They wanted to put a drain in it and everything else. And she did the paddles on it for 2 hours, and it broke down the seroma on my belly. Now it's not gone, but it brought it down. So I am a firm believer of this. I don't care what anybody says. I notice the difference in my joints. That's why I'm asking you, how frequently do I need to do this? If it's every day. At this point, I'm willing to, and I believe that our body is energy. I just haven't found anybody who I could talk to like this for a while. I moved from from Chicago to Florida. So it's been a long time that I found anybody like this. And they had to go halfway across the world to find you.
It is a bit of a searching process, but there are no accidents. There are no accidents. You if you reverse engineer how you got here, it's like infinite possibilities that you wouldn't have. But the fact that you're here and on this call and we're talking about these subjects is extremely necessary, and there is no accident there.
Okay.
So the
So
way
where do we go from here for me, Ken?
that's you and Patty. Would then I'm just bridging the gap of information
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Well,
how.
Ken, I just cannot tell you how shocked I was that you said yes, because I know you are the busiest person on the planet, and I cannot thank you enough. My son, Joseph McDaniel, just finally was able to get on. He's the one that made the Healy website that he's a big Joe Dispenza fan like you
Oh,
are. And so,
awesome. I
yeah,
love it. I've been to over 20 live events with Dr. Joe over my 12-year journey with that community, and it's incredible. Again, the potential that we have within our if we could just understand at a very fundamental, deep level that it is the mind that does influence biology. We just have a tendency to point outside of us. That did it, and that did it, and that did it, not my mind, because uh,
Yeah.
heaven forbid my mind would ever do anything to hurt.
Would ever fail me. Yeah.
But it's the fundamental baseline. I always say, look, we got to get all the way down to the dirt. As an engineer, I go all the way down to the dirt. And to be honest with you, the dirt's still not the baseline. Light itself is the baseline. And there is so much great information now about how light influences what we would call the fourth phase of water, building essentially a water battery within the cells. This is how we charge it up. But how do we do that? Kind of from the technological standpoint, it's all frequency. So we just need to build coherent signals and build the right information. I don't care if it's the way you're thinking or if it's the way you're hacking. Okay, build a biohacking stack, and that's the way you think and the way you feel and the way you energize, the way you nourish, the way you hydrate. That's a stack. Be active, get out in nature, put your feet in the dirt, ground your bare feet, your bare hands, your bare butt. I don't care, whatever it is, get it in the dirt. Let the earth start to balance you along with all the other pieces you're doing. Cancer cannot survive in an alkali body, and an alkali body is not built in stress response. You can't do it. It won't happen. The vagal tone, our vagus nerve, is is going to keep all of that, all those systems in an acidic nature because of its consuming rate of everything everything from every resource. It's constantly consuming. There's no regeneration, and our bodies become disorder. So
And
the
I believe that.
the
Definitely.
simple and look, there's hope for anybody, no matter where you are, because chaos is simply just order waiting for the right consciousness to observe it.
I love that.
Change your mind will change your consciousness. You will take all of that disorder and observe it right into order.
Okay. One more question, Ken. If with the Healy, is it, once it's my Healy, is it acceptable for other people to use it, like my husband, or is it
Heck,
just for me?
heck yeah, sharing is caring, right? I mean, you can,
Okay. I didn't know if it was like a toothbrush.
yeah, with one,
No,
no, with one Healy, you can serve the whole family. I personally have several because I tend to be I want it to be I got mine on and you can't
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
it. Uh,
Well, I plan on two. Yeah, and I probably, if it's when I get to be accustomed with it, I'm sure I'm going to rapidly take advantage of everything it has to offer. So,
It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
we've been hit down here with three hurricanes and since 2023, since I've moved here, and it's been quite devastating. I just came back from right the Asheville Chimney Rock area, and that's been
Oh, wow.
devastating. So we need a lot of mental clarity here, and I'll take all the help I can get right now for my energy fields.
well, Patty, if you will do one thing
Hmm.
for yourself is simply make an agreement with yourself every day to fall in love with life. Just that one little thing, fall in love with life. And it doesn't have to be proven to you. It doesn't have to be actually coming into your life in this moment. Life is a gift to the tune of 400 trillion to one that you're even here. Like I said, so this, if we look at it as a gift, and every one of those cells as our little mini presents,
Hmm.
and we take those little mini presents and we give them the signal of love and abundance, kindness, nurturing. I don't care whatever it is. If we give those that information to those cells, then they will build a body that serves us within that boundary, within that bandwidth. So I have a 5-step self-care protocol, and I'll share that with you guys because it's super simple and it's 100% free. Step one, every single day that you hydrate. You hydrate your body. And that equation is half your body weight in ounces of water, basically per day, but not, you don't drink a gallon in the morning and say, I'm done. No, it's about a couple ounces every hour or, a glass full every couple of hours or something like that. But it's half your body weight in ounces of water every day. So proper hydration. Number two, grounding. I talked to you about that grounding a little bit earlier. Getting out in nature, putting your feet in the ground. Now, if it's because of weather you can't, maybe it's the middle of winter, that's okay. There's also cold plunging that does a whole lot of stuff for the body. If that's not your gig, there are grounding sheets, grounding mats, grounding devices that you can put in your house that hook to the electrical systems of your house. And as long as that's grounded properly, you're going to get the same electron flow from the earth. I just like to be outside in nature more so. Number three is breathing. You know, most people do not use the full capacity of their lungs. Our lung is from the collarbone. If you just touch the collarbone and then the bottom rib of your body, that's one lung. Okay. There's two of them in there. And we typically breathe in the top 1/4. So full deep breaths, regular deep breaths. And I highly recommend a minimum of 10 rounds of what we call box breath, box breathing. You can go online, take a look on YouTube, whatever. You can find so many different breathing techniques that will serve you properly. The body cannot be in a stress response during a box breath. Why? Because the vagus nerve, the vagal tone, requires a signal from the body of short, rapid breaths to be in a stress response. Well, guess what? If we breathe deeply and slowly in and out, we are giving a tone to our vagus nerve that speaks to our brain that moves us out of stress response. Okay, so super, super duper effective. Number four is movement within our bodies. Remember I said earlier, stagnation is the new smoking, and that is a huge acidic influence on our body. Movement engages the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is our detox or our garbage disposal system. And the only thing, it doesn't have a pump like our blood does. It is our muscle structure. 64% of your immune system is related to your muscle structure. So when it comes to autoimmune issues, if we're not moving, if we're not maintaining muscle, and again, that relates back to amino acid profiles. Proper amino acid profiles help build lean muscle mass. So there's a relative cycle right there that's important. So movement, when I say movement, I'm just talking about going for a walk. I'm talking about maybe some yoga. Dancing is qualified. Anybody like to dance? So get on. Here's your excuse. Get out there and dance. You do not need a
Jump on the
I line
trampoline.
dance 4 days a week.
trampoline is another one. Mini trampolines or trampolines. Movement is amazing. I tell the kids just roll around the grass. Watch for the little doggy doo-doos, but roll around the grass. That's super fun because that compression of the body rolling over itself,
Yeah.
that's a pump. That's a
Yeah.
pump. Okay.
What about, and I actually have a vibrational plate as well.
It's useful if you're moving. Standing there on the vibrational plate is, again, vibration plates are,
I can't just stand. I have to move.
there you
But
go.
I'm wiggling a lot everywhere as I'm moving. But
So-
I have, like, I'm trying to do a squat or, you know what I mean?
Or arm exercises.
Yeah.
Get on that vibration plate and dance, right? If you take a look at tribal indigenous tribes would do bouncing exercises and dancing exercises that move the body, right?
And they raise their shoulders. They
Yeah.
do shoulder
Go do some Tai Chi.
There you go.
There you go.
Those large movements. So I taught martial arts for over 2 decades. I teach a lot of body movement and that kind of thing. So it's super important. So that's number 4, movement. Again, you can do a 3-for by walking barefoot outside. Now all of a sudden you're grounding, you're moving, right? You're in nature. Forest bathing is one of my favorite things to do. Go out and walk in the and just get bathed by the energy fields in the woods. The smells trigger the olfactory nerve for relaxation, for elimination. I mean, don't be surprised. You go out in the woods. You know that old saying, "Does a bear poop in the woods?" Well, yeah, it triggers that your whole relaxation and elimination process. And so it's like, yeah, gotta go. So number five of this 5-step self-care protocol is to fall in love with life. Find a reason to fall in love with your life or life in general because it is a gift afforded to you that is not afforded to so many billions. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 self-care protocols. I've given you tons of principles in how you can adjust your genetic codes. So hopefully that content will help you guys out. I do got to run. Any last questions?
How do we get a copy of this as long as you were taping it?
I will convert this to a YouTube, upload it to the channel, and then make sure through Patty, I'll get you guys a link.
Okay, that's awesome. And
Thank
then
you so much.
I wanted to
Patty,
show you real quick. I got these pretty nerdy looking right now grounding shoes that ground me down to the earth. So, I wear these every day, and TSA always looks at me strange when I go through TSA. But I like what you said about, the life's a gift. That's why they call it the present,
Yeah.
right? So,
It is the
Yeah.
present. So are
yeah, and
those, I have a
okay,
question for you, Joe.
awesome.
Are those socks copper socks?
these are just organic, just regular organic cotton.
Okay, so
But I should get some copper socks.
get some copper socks or fill your shoes with water, one of the two. Because we're looking at electron flow and electron flow, materials that are dry are insulators. They're not conductors, and so I love those conductive shoes. I wear the same kind of thing, barefoot or copper socks. They are conductive, and that allows that grounding. Basically, you're taking positive or free radical electrons from your body. You're discharging them through just look at it as a wire, like you plugged a lamp into the
Yep.
outlet, and that wire is the conduit. So you got to think of everything that's between the earth and your skin as an obstruction or a allowance of that electron flow. So,
I'm kind of lucky. I got the ocean right here that I go and,
oh,
get
barefoot.
a whole skin refresh and everything. But, I
Perfect.
like what you said also about everything comes down to light. I'm a projectionist. And, it's funny when you look at a projection on a screen, you see a bunch of different independent images moving,
Yep.
but those independent images are all comprised of the same one pure light source. Just
Right.
like, how an atom, they say, is whatever percent mostly empty space. Well, that empty space is a projection of pure source light. So are you.
Yep.
And if you can tap into that pure source light and find your grounding, I find that helps when you can connect understanding. I feel a lot of people have a lack of foundational understanding. That's
Mhm.
why they're not able to connect the information on like what are chakras and how does it relate to your lymphatic system and all that stuff, And so
As
really great talk. Thank you so much for all that.
Yeah, as we talked earlier, those energy centers, aka chakras, they also have purpose and energy fields, and so yeah, there's everything's related. We can't discount
Right.
one aspect of these bodies, and that's why again we can't like just changing your diet doesn't mean you're going to wind up being healthy. Just changing your exercise routine doesn't mean you're going to be healthy. Remember, the mind can negate all that. Those 5 self-care protocols there's one number 5 that's my favorite. That's the one that starts to negate that mind in the terms of nocebo, um, which is a demise, into a placebo that is positive and can change those biological signals. So I will work on getting the recording of this. I know, Joe, you probably missed the first half, but a lot of things that we talked about were in that epigenetic and those ways of understanding principle. And you sounds like you got a great foundation. So, guys, I got to run. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank you so
so
much.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very interesting, Ken. Thank